Fabulous. Welcome back to the No Boring Stories podcast. I am Alex Street, and this is the place where there are no boring stories. And once again, we have a fabulous guest here, somebody who, well, does not know what a boring story is. She has lived a fantastic life all over the place, and she is just so engaging and exciting and fun to talk to. So I am thrilled to have Roni on the show today. Roni, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Alex?
I am fabulous. I am excited to dive in to your story, to all the ups and downs and twists and turns that it has. And where I think it's going to be so fantastic is that idea of a big, complicated, twisted, all over the place story is one that so many people can relate to and feeling that way. And if we can bring clarity to that, then I think there's hope for everyone. That's
Always.
basically it.
Always.
So I mean, let's just start there. Like, do you feel like at this point in your life, are you like, yeah, no, I understand my story. I understand my journey, my transformation. It's pretty clear how I'm showing up today. Is that where you're at, or is there some pretty big gaps in it?
No, actually, I do understand my story pretty well. I don't feel like I have a lot of gaps. There are times when there's pieces of my story, amazingly though, that show up that I've forgotten about.
Mm. And then what happens? What is that? Okay, let's significant moments. You're in a conversation, somebody says something, you're like, whoa, this thing happened. And then does it become, whoa, I'm hanging my hat on that? Like that's a defining moment that I totally forgotten about? Or is it typically smaller things like, oh yeah, I did eat a funnel cake at that carnival?
No, it's just for me, it's usually bigger things. And part of that comes from part of the twists and turns in my story. And
Yeah.
I showed up in life at different points in time, whether I had full control of my faculties or not, because there were times when I definitely didn't. And so things will come back and I'll go, oh, I remember that now. Or
Yeah.
talking with my kids and they'll say, remember when this happened? And I'll go, no, Mom, this was huge. This happened.
Right.
So
Right.
tell me more. So, and it's interesting because I don't remember. And then once they bring it up, then slowly as I'm ready and able to acknowledge that it happened,
Yeah.
whether good or bad, or say, man, that one just flew right by me, then it really opens it up for me. And if there's work I need to do around it, I can.
Right. So then it becomes more than just a moment. It becomes the feelings around the moment and the everything that the moment that was happening around that moment. Isn't that fascinating? That and I think that's so much of what this work is. That's so much of what I'm doing with people, and why I love this, and just the ability, the invitation to dive into people's stories. Because yeah, at surface, we're just going through your moments. We're just flipping page by page, and it's episode by episode. Let's just explore what happened. But then we start to open that up and connect those episodes, those moments, to who you are now, or who you were a little bit later, or who you were before that. And all of a sudden, those moments have meaning to them. Those moments matter than before. Those moments become magical, how they connect. And then they start to define how we show up today.
Exactly.
That's power. Whew.
Exactly.
Good stuff. Okay,
Yep.
talking about moments and moments connecting, and one of the most amazing people who does this, I know you and I share a love for Lin-Manuel Miranda, and specifically Hamilton, the show. I mean, who doesn't love it? But uh, it
You're not
is.
my friend.
And I mean, what's so phenomenal is just to carry this forward, right? You're just taking these moments in history that have been talked about forever and ever. I mean, for hundreds of years, really the last century, let's say, and we can define them and put our own characteristics on them and the people involved in them. And then he takes those moments, those otherwise boring moments, and turns it into this mixtape of rap and feelings and this arc
Mhm.
following this one person. What stands out to you from that? Why does that stick with you so much?
For me, the pieces of Hamilton, besides the music, is fabulous. And the sets fact. I mean, all of the theater pieces are like it doesn't get much better than that.
Uh-huh.
But getting into the backstories of all of those characters that were were important in history, but they
Yeah.
really didn't come out. I mean, they're really not what we would read about
Yeah.
necessarily unless we picked up a book that included them.
Right. Isn't that, and right. So you've got these supporting characters who you're like, yeah, where were they in time? I mean, Hamilton himself, right? That's the thing. Nobody's talking about those guys until boom, ba 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 boom, 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 wow, wow, wow. Did you see it live?
I did. I'm going again in a few
Oh,
months.
come on. Oh, fabulous. Did you see it with the like original cast or
Oh no, I
no?
don't think I've
Okay.
seen any musicals with the original cast. I have seen lots that have characters. Some of the characters have gone on to Broadway, but
Mm-hmm.
Broadway's still on my bucket list.
Oh yeah. Ugh. Well, me too. I
Yeah.
mean, we saw it in Toronto. We saw it actually the week before the pandemic hit. That was
Oh my,
it. So we, and I mean, we got tickets. We got like season tickets to this theater just so we would get cheap and first access to Hamilton. We got our thing. We were booked for April, and we actually moved it up so that it would be on the same date as my wife's birthday. So we went for her birthday, and 2 days later, every theater around the world shut down.
oh my gosh.
And we're like, oh, at least we got to see Hamilton.
Yeah, sure.
Like,
Oh my gosh. You know, there's another piece to that that I really
yeah.
love Lin Manuel Miranda is if you listen to his stories like the or his music and things, it's not just a background story about with words, but there's pieces from his other works that are
Mm-hmm.
tied into Hamilton. So you can hear some pieces that come out of um, in the Heights. You can actually hear some of those pieces in Hamilton. So he's kind of got it all connected.
Yeah, right. So it's just, I mean, yeah, it's you recognize that it's the artist putting
Yeah.
himself into these shows, and it would be the same as, um, yeah, I mean, any like Picasso. Well, yeah, you can recognize a Picasso because it looks weird, but you can recognize certain artists, certain musicians by the tone of their voice, and then you're or the tone of their work, and then you're looking at these musicals. You're like, hey, this has bits and pieces of
Yeah.
him in
Yeah.
this. And to look at that idea of like the backstories, the side characters, really like painting this massive picture. That's what I love. And that's why I'm here. And that's why we're going to dive in here as well and explore your story here. So, okay. So, with all of that, that's just story talking. That's just us nerding out a little bit. But what is it that you do? What are you doing these days? What's your main work that you're bringing to the world, Ronnie?
The main work I'm bringing to the world is neuro-linguistic programming, timeline therapy, hypnosis, and coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Tying all those together to help people, to empower people to be able to get rid of limiting beliefs and use language in a powerful way to move them forward.
Mm.
Because so much of the language we have floating around in our head is not necessarily moving us forward, and we don't even know it. And a lot of it comes from way back in our past
Right.
that we just carry forward and we just keep running that old radio station, you know, that AM station, and it's not even connected anymore. We keep running that.
It's got to be AM radio. I love
Yes,
that.
yes.
It's
So
so
that's
old.
my
It's
generation.
so
It's not that
so
fun. I knew of when I was growing up.
neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. Like it's this, and it's really about. I've heard this used and seen this as a tool that people use to break out of old patterns, and also to like to connect with potential clients, if it were like to really master the art of language and how language connects to thought. And you're saying you're helping people kind of go from like from internally, like what's the language that you're hearing and you're saying to yourself, right?
Correct. Yeah. So part of it, just noticing the stories that we tell ourselves is number one. I mean, people don't even realize a lot of times they're telling themselves stories.
Yeah.
So how do we access that unconscious mind so that we go, oh, there's that story again that keeps
Hey,
showing
like
up?
what? Like what's a story that someone might be telling themselves?
I'll give an example of one of mine that shows up, that I'm not intelligent.
Okay.
So that shows up from way back in my past.
Right. So at first you say I'm not intelligent. That's not a story. That's a statement. That's an end result. But
It's
that's,
not
yeah,
a
you're
fact.
saying that's,
It's
what's
not a
that?
fact. That's not a fact.
No, but it sounds like a fact. It sounds like it's a statement
It's a
that
statement.
isn't true.
A statement that isn't true. So it's not, I mean, I call them stories. It's the story I
Sure.
tell. I'm not intelligent. It's not a
But that's
fact.
what I mean. That's what I'm trying to say is that the story, I think you've got it. It's absolutely true. It's just, but that's the end result. Here's a story and the end result is I'm not intelligent. But in your brain, you're actually reinforcing that false statement with evidence, so-called evidence throughout your life that proves that you are in fact not intelligent. Am I right? Like that's the story. That's
Correct. Correct. So when I get in a situation where need, I might be needing to learn something, or I might be um, conducting a workshop or something,
mm-hmm.
my self-talk may be, in the past, this was really hard for me because I'm so dumb and da 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 da. So noticing that language pattern, that
Mm-hmm.
story, the program that I'm telling myself and going, that's not true. Here's the fact. The
Mm.
fact is I got through high school, I got through college, I have a master's degree. I've had, you know, thousands of hours of NLP training. So I am intelligent.
So there's a story. So there's actually just two different stories. I mean, you picture, well, let's take Hamilton,
Okay.
right? I mean, you could pick up a textbook and read about Alexander Hamilton. And from that, you get the facts, you get what happened, this is what happened, this is where it was, this is who he fought, this is who he disagreed with, blah, 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 blah. And you get this, I mean, ultimately boring story. That's what it looks like. And from that, you could come out with a statement that says Alexander Hamilton was one of the founding fathers of the nation, and he's a pretty important guy. Or so that can be a story that's told, but then you're like, it's a story that's told about the same person. But holy crap, you look at this 2.5 hour musical and it's like we're talking about somebody totally different because we're telling a totally different story here of this person who had these ups and downs and had to overcome all these barriers and all these pitfalls along the way to become the person he was, to share his gift with this world and inspire others to do the same. It is so deep and rich and is inspiring all of us all around the world to do whatever we can to make this world a better place. Same
Exactly.
person, different story.
Exactly.
And that's what you're doing with your life, is seeing I'm the same person. It's all the same experiences. I'm just choosing to tell my own story differently.
I'm choosing how I write my story. Yeah, I'm choosing. This is how it's going to go.
This is fun stuff. You know, I'm in for this. Okay. So then is it really just around, oh, I mean, we'll get into your story for sure, but is it really just around like positive and negative language? And do you know what I mean? Like, is it just about saying like, I was cool? Like I was not cool in school. Oh no, I was cool in school. And you're just choosing to tell it differently.
I wish it was that easy, but it's really not, because with that story we attach emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get to identify what emotions are attached to that, especially what negative emotions are attached to the
Right.
story, so that we can release those negative emotions. And then at the same time, so this is the part of the timeline therapy piece that I do.
Yeah.
When we release the emotions, we figure out what did I learn? What are some learnings I can take away from this that can support me in the future when I come to a situation like this? So some learnings I would take away from the I am intelligent, whenever that first, I notice that the first time, I might take away, I am smart. I can learn what I need to know. I can learn many things. I can learn quickly. So I've got all these learnings that I can then grasp onto when I notice that that old program is starting to play again.
Right. So you are going back in your timeline and finding a moment that that is evidence that is alternate evidence to the truth that you're believing, or the statement that you're believing. So I am not intelligent. Now you're going back in your timeline to find a moment when somebody said you're smart. Is that kind of the work?
We go back in our timeline to release the negative emotions. So some of the work I do is like, okay, let's release anger. When's the first time you remember that? You may not remember the first time you noticed anger, but if you were to know, when was it?
Yeah.
We identify that. So we do the same with all the 5 major negative emotions, and then any others that come up for people. So anger, fear, sadness, hurt, guilt, and then sometimes shame. A lot of times there's some shame that comes up for a lot of people. Abandonment's a big one that we get to go back and work on.
Yeah.
Releasing that emotion.
Yeah.
And then what can I learn if I come to a situation in which I feel abandoned again?
Is that not, that's got to be scary for us, isn't it? To go and not only to, I'm going to face this first feeling, anger is something that's been in my life the whole time. And you want me to go back and find when it first showed up? You want me to face the dragon under my bed? Like, you really want me to, okay. But that's scary. But then I think what's even more scary is releasing that and trying to figure out who you are now. If you don't have that, now who am I? If I release this thing that has been such a strong part of my identity, then who am I? Is that not scary for people, do you find?
I don't, because most of the people are ready to let go of it
There we go.
Yeah, when we're working together. The piece I would say is, anger, you may not know when the first time you experienced it was. It could have been you had a wet diaper and didn't get changed quickly.
Yeah.
It could have been, emotions are passed through our DNA. So it could have been something generational that's been affected. So it's releasing however much of that we can release. It doesn't really change you. It changes how you react.
Yeah.
When a situation would come up. So.
And that's what you were just saying. So then you're learning how to react when something comes up like this again. How are you reacting now according to a different story?
Yeah, because what we've done is and this is kind of backing up. I didn't give you all of the background behind it, but it's a Gestalt method. So it's like every emotion starts stringing itself. Every time you have anger, it starts stringing itself together as if it were a pearl necklace. So one pearl is anger, one pearl is another piece of anger, one pearl, and then they add up. So what we do is we go back to that first time that we can identify where anger was. We take that pearl out. Well, what happens when you take a pearl out of a pearl necklace? The pearls all go away. They break. So then you get to kind of realign everything and go forward.
Wow. And yeah, and as you say, like it's redefining the character. It's when, have you seen Fight Club?
No.
Oh, okay.
I've seen the
Well, it's brilliant. For those that have seen it, there's this character that you're following all along the way, and it's been out long enough that I can spoil it now. And he has these conversations all along the way with his with this other person. And then you find out at the end of the movie that it's not him, or the other person doesn't exist. It's all in his mind. And then you go back and you see the whole thing and how it's played out. Or like Sixth Sense, where you go back and you see that, wait a second, he wasn't there. I don't like he was a ghost the whole time. Big spoilers here. And so you've got these moments where now you're looking back at your life and you get to frame it or see it through a different lens. and as you say, yeah, redefine those moments and who you were then and how that played out. And now to go forward, how are you going to be
Yeah.
according to that story? That is phenomenal.
So I just have a question though. In The Sixth Sense, he was a ghost, really, in the end?
Are you kidding me?
I had to watch it twice to make sure I got it.
Oh boy. I don't know. Like there is actually this sinking feeling. Just even as I say both of those right now, I'm like, oh my goodness. I hope that nobody is planning to watch either of those movies tomorrow for the first time. And then they hear this. It just ruins because they're so good.
You should have told them
Um,
to plug their ears for a little bit.
yeah, well, we're all grown-ups here. Deal with it. It's been out long enough. How so here you are helping people deal with this, helping people explore their stories and the stories that they've been telling, the tapes that have been playing again and again, and what stories they're telling, and then to go back and reframe those, and what happens when that does shift. I mean, you said, very specifically, let's talk about anger and how they show up for the next, but in general, what's the impact that you see in people's lives as they do release this and then start to write a new story?
Oh my gosh. There have been so many different things that I've seen impacted. It's just kind of amazing to me. I can tell you, just talking about anger, when I worked with my coach and we did timeline therapy with it, he said, now go just for a couple of weeks, pay attention to times when you would normally get angry and see what happens. It wasn't more than 2 days later, something happened at work where I normally would have gone into my office, slammed the door, and used a word. I only use behind closed doors very loudly. Um, and I didn't. It was just like, okay. So I show up differently a lot of times in situations like that. Um, Other things that I've seen people be able to make some pretty big transitions in their life once they've recognized the stories that weren't serving them and were able to rewrite those stories.
Yeah.
Um, in fact, one person I worked with, she was really, really trying hard to get pregnant. And they've been trying for a long time. Once we figured out what the story was that she was telling herself, and we were able to get rid of the emotions behind that, she was pregnant in 2 months. I mean, the little guy's 3 now. So it's those are the kinds of things that make me go, this stuff is phenomenal.
Right.
It
The
works.
power of the mind in
Yes.
this
And
and
we let,
how it affects the body and the soul and all of it.
yeah. So
So where does that begin for you? I mean, what's the importance in this for you in your story and the stories that you were writing? Like where, I could go back and say, where did the idea of language and um and storytelling and how that affects how you show up, where did that begin for you? Was that as a kid? Were you like, oh, I see that I'm in, I'm embracing some ideals here about myself that that I don't like? Were you seeing that in other people? You're seeing people talk about themselves and you're like, that's not who you are. What's the deal? Like where does this idea begin for you?
that's an interesting question. You know, I can think back to my childhood, and I always wanted to be liked,
Hmm.
and so I was always positive. I was always willing to help people. I was always putting myself last.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some abuse that was in my past that I think kind of led to some of that. I'm not sure, but it would be my guess. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I knew that it was important to be positive. I knew a positive attitude was important. But I also knew that even with that positive attitude, I kept making some pretty poor choices in my life.
Hmm.
Um, you know,
Like what? Like what? So yeah, this is. I mean, you're talking about teenage years and kind of going forward in college and stuff. Like What
What?
shows up?
Well, let's just put it this way. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I have been
Okay.
sober. This is my second go round. I was sober 12 years. The first time,
Amazing.
14 years sober. This time, um, I drank, so I didn't have to feel all those things like I want to be popular, but I'm not popular. I want to have a boyfriend, but I don't have a boyfriend. I must be ugly because I don't have a boyfriend. All those things. So I drank to cover all of that up.
Mm-hmm.
I drank so I didn't have to feel those emotions. Um, I'm I my both of my grandparents were alcoholics, so it skipped a generation, and I was the one that was gifted with that. Um, and we didn't growing up. We didn't learn a lot about emotions. We didn't. If
Right.
you were angry, it was like you were dumb to be angry. You shouldn't be angry. That's silly. Or if you're sad, you shouldn't be sad. It's silly to be sad about that. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, yeah. I don't know
So
what
what
I'm
is
saying.
what is that like? Is it just it's about you, like you're not even allowed to have the feelings or express the feelings?
I I don't know that I ever asked that question. Um, the what I told myself was I wasn't. If I wasn't supposed to be sad, then what was I feeling? Because I was feeling something.
Mm-hmm. And then it's
So
just confusion.
it is, and you don't know what to do with it, and it's like, okay, I've got this feeling. I don't know what it is,
Yeah. I'm
but
not
if I
supposed to
told
have it.
you, what are that's silly. You shouldn't have that feeling. So
So you keep carrying with that. You're teaching yourself these things or being taught these ideas, and then you get going. You're like, all right, well, the only way to then deal with this instead of exploring it or anything, again, the only way to really suppress
mhm,
is to numb.
to numb, exactly. So I numbed for a lot of years. In between the numbing, I got married and had a baby, graduated from college. Well, that wasn't in between, that was during the first round of numbing experiences. Um, got a job,
So you're like, this is, again, like you get into, I don't know, what university, college would you go to school for?
education.
Okay, to be a teacher or to
Yeah,
be in
yeah,
any role in education. Okay.
yeah.
What was that? Where does that desire come from?
Uh, I don't know. I don't know where it came from. Probably because I had a couple of teachers I liked and I wanted to be like them, is my guess.
Yeah.
My music teacher was my absolute favorite in high school because
Mm,
he he encouraged me with my talent. So um, I was from a small school, but I was pretty talented for that small school. Um, and when I went to college, I was going to become a music major. Well, it became quickly apparent that I was pretty talented for that little school,
yeah.
but on the talent meter, when I went to college, it wasn't quite as high up as some of the other kids coming to school. So
Right, right.
I thought, well, I'll just do drama then, because I was pretty good at drama too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I found out the same thing. So,
Small fish, big pond.
yes, yes, yes. So
Um,
I thought,
what kind of things did this music teacher, like what do you remember him saying, or like how did he express that you were like encouraging you and your gifts?
he let me sing solos.
Hey.
So he didn't let everybody sing solos. So he nominated me for a couple of national choirs and the all-state choirs and things that I was in. So I got to tour around, um, which was totally foreign to me because my family didn't have a whole lot of money, so we didn't travel much.
Right.
So
So you've got this person that you look up to that maybe at this point you're like, maybe that influenced me to go into education and learn what it takes to be a teacher and how to do that. Meanwhile, you are developing and getting into this reliance on drinking so that you don't feel anything throughout this time. And how long does that go for? You said like, as you know, I started a relationship and got married during all that time? Is that over the next 10 years? Like what does that look like? Is that in your 20s?
I got sober the first time when I was 29.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have gotten through school, gotten a job, had a baby, and gotten divorced in that time.
Yeah. And then you were like, after the divorce, you're like, I gotta get sober, or
Well, I had divine intervention from my mother, who said, if you don't do something, I'm going to have your child taken away from you.
God bless her. So
Yes.
good. Okay. And so that is not, it's not an easy conversation to have. That's not an easy then to just say, okay, fine, I'll turn the switch off, I assume. What's that struggle like then? What does that, what does that mean for you at that point? To stop drinking means I'm going to have to face all of these feelings.
I didn't even think about that at that point, but eventually, yeah, I would have to face those feelings. What really came up for me was an old program
Mm-hmm.
that I had heard from my mom for years. Was I was like her mother, and her mother was a raging mean alcoholic. So when she would say I was like her mother, it was like, okay, I just lived up to what she said I was. I am
Right.
except I wasn't mean. I was just blackout. So
Right. Right.
yeah,
So if anytime she says you're just like her, then you're like, well, this is just who I am. This is just,
yeah,
so it's actually letting go of that programming.
yes, yeah.
Now, were you into NLP at that point?
No,
You weren't studying that at all.
way down the road.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Way down.
So, but you're in education at that point
Yes.
and working as an administrator. Is that right? Is that
At that point, I was a teacher,
okay?
and
And pardon?
I had just gotten divorced.
Okay. All right. And so here we are. So just painting the picture again, right? So there's this kind of where we've come so far is this person who you want to be liked, you want to be positive, you want to be helpful, but there's all these other feelings and you feel like I'm just supposed to be positive, but if these other feelings are showing up and I don't know how to deal with them, I don't know if I'm allowed to have them, my only answer to that is to numb them, get rid of them. And through that process, I'm also going to become a teacher because I want to influence other people like I was influenced, like I was inspired. And through all of that, this drinking is this dark spot that's carrying through and is having a serious impact on who you are.
Yes.
This person who desperately wants to be liked.
Yes. That's exactly it.
Okay. And now here we are. So then what happens?
Okay. Well, I got sober, got remarried, had 2 babies, got my master's degree. No dumpster fires in that period of time, really.
Isn't it
Moved.
interesting? You're talking like the way you just told that story. Got married, had 2 babies, got sober, and got my master's. Those are significant life moments. And you just brush through it in one sentence because you're like, there's no dumpster fire happened. And
Right.
it's just fascinating to me how that happens. We go through, and I know, like, it's a podcast. Of course, I'm looking for the important moments. I'm looking for the hinge points. But even as we talk about this, we're like, yeah, those things happened.
Yeah.
How are those not defining moments? You know what I mean? Like how are any of those not? And I think it's because there's something else that came that had a more significant impact. But there's something about those that we just, yeah, this happened and this happened and this happened.
Here's my thought around that is my defining moments were not or when I learned something. And the way I've always learned something is, I don't say the hard way, but it's been something that's been painful.
Yeah.
And then I've been able to take that pain and figure out what the gift was in the pain that I was supposed to learn.
Why do you think that is? Like, yeah, because those things, got sober, had kids, got married, got my man. Like, those are all inherently celebratory things that we should celebrate, joyful moments. And you're looking and you're like, yeah, but I learned through the pain. Do we all?
Yes.
Why do we learn through the pain more than the joy?
That's the way our brains are wired. Well, you think about it. When have you learned your best lessons?
Yeah, I mean, I tell my story. The way I tell my story, one of my most significant moments was when my mom was dying, and I don't know what to do. Yeah, everything's flipped upside down. What do? I got to find the most simplistic way to look at life and faith and everything, because everything else is confusing.
Yeah.
But then I have these other moments that I talk about, which are people giving me a chance to speak. And like, what did that do for me? What did that spark for me? But you're right. I probably didn't learn from that. That's just part of my story. That was a turning point.
I didn't. So let me. One thing I've always said is anybody can get a master's degree.
Yeah.
Anybody can get a master's degree. You just need to go jump through the hoops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I even got one.
I didn't mean that, but but until there's something emotionally charged, painful, we don't really learn from it. You think about a kiddo learning about crossing the street.
Yeah.
When do they really learn about crossing the street? When they're just about to go out there and we go, ah!
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it shocks. There's the shock to the system. There's a wait, what?
Yeah.
And I guess that's like, maybe that's a beautiful thing, is that we're actually conditioned to expect the best, to expect, joy. And so it's when the pain hits, that's when we are shocked. That's when those become defining moments, because wait, this isn't what I was expecting.
And I probably would tweak that statement just a little bit and say, we expect to find happiness.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We can find joy at any point.
I love the way, have you read The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek?
I have it on my shelf.
It's so good. And the way that he just defines this is that it's not about winning or losing, right? There isn't a positive or negative even. It's not about you just scored a point or lost a point. Or nobody ends up as a winner in this. And so the way that I heard them talk about this on a podcast, the way that he goes through his life now is not about this is good or bad. He says, today I feel ahead, or today I feel behind. Because that's all there is. If it's a never-ending soccer game, you're never winning or losing. You're just ahead or behind, because there's no winner or loser. It's this real mind-screwing thing. But to think about it that way, it's really messed me up to think about how I talk about, positive and negative emotions as opposed to just emotions. And we expect the best or want the best, and so anything bad that happens, like it's really messed me up how I think about that. But that seems to be so much of this work, and this defining work that you're doing with people, and how we're framing our stories, that maybe it is really important to recognize when something's out of place.
And I heard this on a podcast once, and I don't even know who said it, but those painful situations, those painful times come up because we haven't learned what we need to learn yet. And so once we can stop and step back and go, okay, this pain is actually a gift. What am I supposed to learn from this? That's when we make progress.
I mean, it's so interesting. Like, so I lost both my parents within a couple of years. This is 7 and 9 years ago, and before that, I didn't have grief. Like, I hadn't experienced grief, and then I feel like, oh yeah, well that came on fast, and now I have this thing, and at the same time that I was losing I thought I was losing something. I was losing a relationship, but more than that, I was gaining grief, which is now a part of me forever. And so you talk about, I haven't learned this thing yet, and I have to go through this pain to learn this thing. It's a gift. Yeah, it's come to me now that now I can speak to that. I can help other people through that. I can do whatever it can be to do, whatever it's here for me to do. But I guess that's where, yeah, I would agree. I would accept that as reality, as what we're doing with our stories is going back and seeing, well, yeah, that wasn't something to be dismissed. That's something that was there so that you could learn.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's good stuff. I mean, this is what makes for a non-boring story, right? You have these moments that are the hinge. That's it. If you're just going to watch somebody go through their life and there's no trauma, there's no difficulty, there's no pain, well, it's not going to be very interesting.
They might not be on your podcast.
Yeah, that's it.
Everybody has something, just it may not be the same as what others have.
Exactly. Okay, so let's come back into this and sort of see how this all comes together here when you do have those beautiful, joyful moments, but then something else was coming. So what's that?
I had taken a job as a school administrator. So my master's degree is in school administration.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved. And along the line, there were always some red flags around my marriage and fidelity in my marriage. And at one point, I was pretty sure that there was somebody else involved in my marriage besides me. And so I just went, crap, here's this feeling again. I don't know what to do with it. And it's kind of like the hemlock. And who talks about it? Plato, Socrates, don't eat the hemlock to kill the other person.
Mm-hmm.
The other person. So I thought, well, if I start drinking again, it'll be on him. He'd never seen me drinking because I was sober when I married him. So he'd never seen it. So that went downhill really fast. I mean, when they say once you stop drinking and start again, the disease progresses faster. It definitely does. Wow. At least that was my experience. So had that happen, almost lost my job, moved again. So I moved a lot, moved again. I got a text message that said, I love you, Melissa. So that was my convincer, there was something going on. I had a son who had a traumatic brain injury, and I went, I'm going to be a single mom taking care of a child who has some medical issues. And my eyes are yellow. I'm hiding alcohol. I don't remember how my kids got home, and I drove them. I need to do something. So that's when I got sober again.
Right. And how long ago was that?
14 years.
Cool. So then it becomes, I need to do something, which is what? I need to
So I got sober.
Focus on myself. I got sober, and then you go into the work that you're doing, into motherhood.
Yeah, actually, I don't. So I don't. I wouldn't say I focused on myself at that point. I focused on getting sober, and focused on making sure my kids were okay, which kind of backfired with one of them because he didn't feel like he was getting taken care of, with the other one getting all the attention. But I ended up moving again, getting a different job, weighing a lot, became an empty nester, I have 3 sons. So one of them had been missing for several years. We hadn't heard from him. The other one got into substances and substance abuse. And I just went, I've got to take care of myself, or I'm not going to be able to take care of anything if that is ever needed. And I got into some personal development, and then I hired a coach who was trained in NLP, and that's where the story starts. Or that's where the change starts. Let's put it that way.
Look at that. But okay, well, where the change starts. language is everything, right? And I would say, actually, I mean, the change started a long time ago. That's the beauty of it. Like there's this, um, but that's where you start to shift the getting into neuro-linguistic programming was this. What was that? That was an intentional choice to look inward
No,
to figure out what was going on. This wasn't about you finding you.
it was about me being able to be more productive, to be happy, to realize I was a good person. And I just happened to hire a coach who was trained in NLP. I had no clue what NLP was 5 years, 6, 7 years ago.
And so then what happened? What switched there to make you go, whoa, there's something in this. There's something beautiful within me, and there's something possible within this, you know,
The
format.
language he used with me was always something I kept going, why did he say that?
Mm,
Why did he say that? So I used words like I feel, I felt, I found, and he would use the same words I used. Or, I mean, the same representation of words, the same, what is it? Sense with words that I use. And
mhm.
it made me go, okay, why did he keeps doing that? I don't, but I like it.
Right.
Uh, and he would do these visualizations with me, which were timeline therapy at the time, but I didn't know that's what he called, that's what it was.
Right.
So visualize this, and we release those emotions, and it was like, I don't know what this is, but there's something to this. And so I asked him about it, and that's when I took off and started taking some training, because he said, Roni, you're good at this already. You already know how to ask good questions,
Mm-hmm.
because he'd seen me coach for another company that we'd worked with. Um, you have a knack for this. It would really be good for you to learn some intentional moves with your clients that will help them to move even quicker.
Right. So then, and then what do you experience as you go through that? So you like, what was, you recognize what he was doing. How did that change how you felt about you and who you are and what you'd been through? What was the transformation that happened or is still happening? Like, how do you feel now as you show up and interact, engage with life?
Oh gosh, that's an interesting question. One way that I would say I notice a difference in me is I slow down
Mm,
before I react and go, is there something here that I is on me? Is it this about me, or is it about something else? And if it's about me, what is it?
mm-hmm.
So um, I'm trying to give you an example where that might make better sense. Um, Working with a boss, and the boss was irritated with me around something. Normally, before NLP, I would have gone, oh man, I've done a terrible job. He doesn't trust me. He doesn't think I'm doing a good job. But instead, I can step back and go, okay, is this about me, or is this about him? I'm just using him because that my boss at that time happened to be a male. Um,
Sure.
so, you know, I was able to go, this is about him. He's upset because these things have happened, and
Yeah.
I just happened to be at the end of the conversation. So, um, so I didn't take it on. I was able to
Yeah.
go, okay, that's not me. That's his stuff, not my stuff. So I like to say I don't bring my monkeys to the circus anymore unless it's really my circus.
It's so good. So, and that's exactly what again, everybody that comes to you in this work, you're helping do the same thing
Yes.
and then show up feeling like, so if, as you have that conversation and you have that again with your boss, let's say, and you realize, oh, this isn't about me, I'm not bringing my monkeys to this. How does that affect the rest of your day, week, month?
It's not something I think about again.
Right.
It's not something that I would dwell on and go, okay, I need to fix it. I need to do something differently. It's just, it happened.
Whereas otherwise, you're driving home, you're constantly thinking about it. What could I do? How could I act? Why did he? Why did they? Why?
My adrenals are starting to get taxed, all of that stuff.
Distracted, tired, fatigued, all of it, because you're still locked in this moment that actually had nothing to do with you.
Exactly. And
But
at
you've
this,
told the story that it
it
does.
does have something to do with me. It's easier for me now to say, this is about me, and this is
Mm-hmm.
what I get to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Because it showed up for me again. And if it's still showing up, I haven't learned everything I need to learn from that situation.
Oof. Oof. That is such a high intelligence, a high emotional intelligence, I think, to be able, right, to check in and ask all those questions in a split second, or however long it takes. Maybe it's you going to a closet and breathing deeply for 5 minutes. I don't know. But whatever it is, to be able to do that and then say, actually, this is for me. And yeah, I guess that means that I haven't learned everything. Okay,
Yes.
here I go. Here we
Yep.
go. So you've got this beautiful, again, massive. The way you went through this story, right? I mean, we kind of walked through it, everything that we did, but even there's all these parts that you mentioned, significant episodes that you just brushed through. You're like, oh yeah, I just had this brain injury. I had this and this happened. Then I got sober, and then this kid, oh yeah, he went missing, and then this happened, and then this, oh yeah, and then I got this text. I love you, Melissa. Okay, right. These are all like, if you're looking at a series, a TV series, each of those could be an episode
Oh, easy.
over your 8 series, 8 season show. Maybe you're the Young and the Restless, and you're still going.
Oh,
Right, each of those is an episode, and the thing is, where we get hung up is, do I need to include all of those episodes when I just show up to tell my story? And if I do, then how? And if I leave any of them out, will it still make sense? uh, and we're stuck with this is my whole thing, this is my whole story. Whatever age you are, whatever amount of experience you have, there's so many of us going through this. But what I love about yours is it's this story, ultimately, this relatable story of being somebody who again wants to be liked and tries to to numb those emotions, to hide those emotions, to do whatever you can to get by, and reacting to every situation to just get past it, get by. And now, through significance, you could pick any one of those moments. It's going to be the first divorce, or the first time that your mom told you you need to stop this. Is it going to be the second time when you face that situation? You're like, I got started drinking again, or is it when you had this coach who shows up and is like, hey, this is the way, or you decided to get a coach, but then the coach showed you something that you hadn't seen before. You could pick any one of those moments or many others as like this main moment that changed you to become the person that you are now, who isn't reacting to the situation, but is releasing whatever's in front of you and whatever emotions you've carried into this situation, whatever story you've been telling yourself, you're constantly releasing all of this. Is that fair? Is that authentic?
and I don't tell everybody. I don't tell all. In fact, I left a lot of details out in this one.
I'm sure you did. Yeah. But that's what
Yeah.
I mean. I think where it's so beautiful, if that's right, like that's what it comes down to, is you can tell your story um in that. You can just show and say, this is it. This is, I used to be somebody who reacted to everything and hurt myself and others in the process, all to numb the emotions that I didn't know how to deal with. If you've experienced something like that, I get it. I get you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stories that you've now written about yourself because of those years that you've spent in that reaction state. But here I am now, choosing to release these stories, the language, the circumstances, these moments that I face every day, so that I don't have to carry that with me and I can help you do the same.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a beautiful, relatable story in that.
Yeah. My goal is to help people to laugh about it.
To laugh about it?
Yeah.
You don't like to laugh, do you?
I never laugh. No.
Imagine after all that pain, to find the ability to laugh is like there's healing. There's obviously healing.
And I wouldn't be the fabulous person I was today if I hadn't gone through those experiences.
There we go. Well, and the cool thing is that you've learned it all now. There's nothing left to learn.
Oh, yeah, right. Don't say that. It's like asking for faith. Don't do that either.
So if somebody is finding themselves, somebody is listening to this and they're like, yeah, I get it. Like, that's how I feel. Like, I'm just reacting to every situation. I'm showing up and I don't know what to do. I don't know what these emotions are. I don't know why I keep feeling this way. I don't know. I thought I dealt with that. There's these stories I'm clearly telling myself from my past, and I just want to be done with it. I want to be free of it. I want to release all of this. And Roni's clearly the person who can help me get there. How should they find you to start that conversation? What's the best way to connect with you?
I would say I'm on all social media as Roni Rumsey, so you can find me there. The easiest way for you to connect with me is to connect with my community text, my text community at 206-309-6580. And just put podcast there and I'll get back to you. Like, I'll get back to them right away to figure out when we can just set up a time to talk and see what they're looking for and offer encouragement. And if they want to be part of my daily affirmations, well, they're not daily, but my affirmations for a particular day, I'm happy to help them.
So what is that? You send out these affirmations to your text list? And
I do. And then, but I do, yes. What I found with affirmations is they're just words unless you put some action behind them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an affirmation, and then here's a couple of things to do to step into that.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Love that. That's such a useful tool and fantastic that you're doing that. So absolutely get involved with that. Text that number and just say podcast, and Roni, I'll get back to you. Love that. Thank you so much for being here, for not being afraid of any part of your story and opening up, and for sharing this love of Hamilton and storytelling and the stories that we tell ourselves. I think this is it's not even where I thought the conversation was going to go. And that's the most beautiful part, is we went all over the place, and I feel like I've learned so much from you today, and I'm so grateful for your time here.
Thanks. Well, I'm grateful for being able to be on here, and hopefully somebody that needed to hear this hears it. So
absolutely.
yeah. Thanks, Alex.